Hey guys, Zeteo here. Going to be continuing on with some Alpha Cup casting. Today we're going to be looking at the losers bracket of the semifinals. This is between Autopilot and Wraxell. Let's get into it.
Game started.
So we're playing on Cirillata. And we got Autopilot spawned as our blue Armada player at the bottom left, or sorry, bottom right. And we have Wraxell spawned as our red Armada player at the top right. Now there has, I didn't get to see a lot of Alpha Cup games on this map. It's definitely one of my favorites, but it can be kind of interesting because players sometimes elect to take this spawn. Other times players elect to take the left-hand spawn. So in this case, the players are close proximity to each other, and that certainly plays into plays a rather big role here as these players get online here, building their mexes, building on their wind turbines. But yeah, it looks like it's going to be a bot factory out of both players. And yeah. In fact, okay. Sorry, I was just checking OBS real quick, making sure we're good to go. But yeah, bot lab so far. So these spawning positions are quite interesting because if we take a look at like Wraxell's base, for example, we have this cliff here and this bit of water, and that makes it's kind of challenging to do like this frontal assault. So you end up going to the left or to the right, so you go this way or you go that way. But either way, like it somewhat protects it to some degree, but at the same time, the expansions are a little bit more exposed. And if you have units on, say, like the left side, they have to go through your base around this cliff to get to the right side. So it makes it kind of interesting, kind of difficult to, or I should say more difficult to defend those in some sense. But at the same time, Autopilot's position here, these mexes in the back are a little bit safer, because of that cliff, which is right here. But at the same time, frontal assault, this is pretty wide open, directly into his base. It is on a high ground, so, that can certainly help with defense as well, but we'll have to just see how this plays out here. But yeah, so far just some ticks coming out. Pawn over here from Wraxell coming down the line, and, pretty soon here. Well, actually, you probably know where your opponent is already, just from, the scouting pattern. Of course, Wraxell, did kind of get a peek into the base a little bit, not much, but a tiny little bit. So, these players, of course, responding to that at this point, getting out plenty of pawns, plenty of ticks, and just kind of doing that whole, let's look around and see what's going on. Looks like Wraxell actually sending four pawns down the line here. That's certainly a threat that's, Autopilot's going to need to deal with. He does have a con out here in the front, expanding. He does have one in the back as well. So 2 cons out for Autopilot, 1 con out for Wraxell here. So yeah, this is just a kind of going to be a little bit of a difference here. In a little bit here as these players run out of their initial metal. In theory, Autopilot should have a little bit less units because of the double cons going out and expanding. Looks like Wraxell's trying to get that con, no dice. Con is still up and running. So yeah, this is really up to Wraxell to try to deal damage back to those constructors, to kind of even the playing field since he is only doing a 1 con expand. Because yeah, initially it's like you're spending that extra 110 metal on that constructor, but the mechs are pretty close to the base, like you're able to kind of pay it back pretty quickly. But there is a small window of opportunity where that 110 metal could be units, could be pawns, and we'll see, if Wraxell's able to do enough damage to kind of make up for that or not. So far, just little engagements on both the top and bottom of Autopilot's base. But yeah, Autopilot certainly feeling the pressure at the moment. It looks like these pawns are running out of position. Okay, they're coming right back. I was going to say, this con is in trouble, potentially. But yeah, trying to sneak some units into the back. No dice. It looks like they do pick off a constructor, though. So, taking out this position, all that metal that's put into those extractors and that constructor, it's now gone. And now Wraxell's in a good position here. He even snuck out a second con at some point. But yeah, with all those extra units, in these close proximity, close proximity battles here, Wraxell has come out a little bit on top. It's kind of challenging for a defender to, get to every position. The attacker kind of has the initiative with, getting to pick and choose where he sends his units, and the defender has to respond to that in time. If you don't respond to it in time, well, that's a dead con right there. That's a dead mex. That's a, like all these little pickoffs do matter. But there are a lot of wrecks here. A lot of wrecks in the fronts of Autopilot's base here. And, if he's able to resurrect them, that could be a big boon to his army value. Oh, but look at this. Lots of pawns, some ticks coming into Autopilot's base here. I'm not sure if he's going to have enough to defend this. He's probably going to take some damage. Pawns sitting idle. Unfortunately, they could have done some damage here. A little bit slow, with getting them moving. And, unfortunately, these are just going to get picked off. So, Wraxell, is in a good position here, but, kind of missing the opportunity there. Even jumping down this con. If he gets that con, that's also huge. Autopilot taps out. GG. Yeah, I mean, if being a little slow to respond to that, that's game over right there. If you're in these close positions here. But yeah, let's get into our second game. See how that goes. But yeah, I'm a little surprised that Autopilot was a little bit slow to, to get his units in a position there. I'm pretty sure he had a radar, so I mean, he should have seen everything coming and been able to, reroute. But sometimes it's just, your APM's a little bit low at the moment, moving those units around is pretty taxing when you're considering you got the front of your base, the back of your base, all the, the base building parts of it. And then if you have any units on your opponent's side, that's a whole nother, layer to add, or potentially several layers if you have, more than one group of units attacking. But yeah, second game is loaded up. Let's get into that.
Game started.
All right, so we got Autopilot spawned in the center bottom as Armada blue. And we have Wraxell spawned at the top center as Armada Butts red. But yeah, this is the Eye of Horus. And certainly a bot map, at least to open with. I think we saw in some other games that, vehicles are certainly a good contender eventually. But as an opener, bots are definitely supreme, given that there is a lot of bot walkable territory that vehicles cannot traverse, especially in the back of the base here. And, taking the center location is a bit tricky because if you put a radar down in your base, they don't see over these cliffs. And so any opposing units walking through there, they don't really get seen. So it's all about, like, do you have a radar on this side of the map somewhere to, see that coming and prevent it? I've seen players elect to put a radar like around here, and that'll, help protect, help you see what's coming from this left-hand side. But yeah, Wraxell just getting out some ticks. Autopilot starting with the con, it looks like. Actually, Wraxell actually started with the con as well. And actually, I should have pointed this out. He started with one extractor. And that allows him to get that faster con out and faster units out. But his economy is a bit lower here. I'm just trying to, do that real quickly. But yeah, his initial metal is going to dry up here quite a bit faster as he's adding on all these, energy producers. Wind is pretty low right now, so, like if Autopilot didn't make a con during that time, like, it would be certainly a rough situation where you're just like, trying to add on a whole bunch of energy, because the wind is so low, but then also needing that con to go out and start moving and start grabbing expansions can play a really big, can be a big deal. But yeah, in this game, doing just fine with that con already out. Tick, maybe find some damage on this extractor here. Looks like the answer to that is no. Gets picked off. And yeah, I mean, both players going to be rather aggressive, going to be rather defensive at the same time on this map. The map is a bit smaller, And yeah, I mean, your base being a little bit more forward, like it's not hugging the back of the map. There is no, like there are these mountains here, but you know, like I said, bots can traverse that. So, you know, bots can really just like get to your base in all these different directions, and you know, that's just a lot to deal with. So certainly aggression is very strong here. Yeah, a bit of a trade there. 0, you know, metal difference there. Both players lost a pawn. But yeah, Wraxell tried to get a pawn through this backside. There are some units that are going to see it. So that, well, I guess he's he has the APM to pull it back. So I guess that's going to live for now, and maybe try to find an angle later. You know, meanwhile, Autopilot doing the same thing, has a tick in the back here. Gonna find this con and this extractor. This tick out of position for now. You know, and that just kind of goes to like, how far does this radar go? Did the tick maybe scoot along an angle that's you know, Wraxell didn't see? There was another one on the right hand side though, and the left hand side that got picked off there. But yeah, little bits of engagements on the bottom as well. So, you know, certainly the APM is rather taxed for both players at this point. But yeah, it looks like Wraxell gonna need to get out of there. There's just too many pawns and stuff in that direction. But look at this. You know, as he pulls this back, he's sending ticks in a different angle. You know, he's got actually 2 different angles going on here. That one pawn that was pulled back, you know, eventually did get in. Takes out a mech. Could potentially maybe find some more damage. And, you know, this is kind of the hard part about defending. You got to think about all these different angles. Yeah, lots of trading going on. Autopilot taking some damage, but I don't believe he's lost a con yet. 2 cons are out for him. He's, you know, one assisting the base, one going for mexes. And yeah, I mean, these players are kind of just trading blows, and hopefully Autopilots can you know, stop the destruction, and you know, keep his mexes alive, because that's certainly going to be a big deal. Wraxell, however, is this a con? Yeah, so he's lost a con on this other side while that was all going down, and that's certainly a big deal. You know, right now he's fine on metal. You know, he hasn't really lost as much, you know, in terms of extractors, I guess. Or no, okay, I'm sorry. It's Autopilot that's out of energy. That's why his income's lower. So Autopilot is actually ahead on, or was ahead on metal potentially. I mean, he's losing some mexes too here, so you know, this is quite challenging. Khan does get picked off, but he does have another one at the base. And yeah, actually, he's taking quite a bit of damage here, but there are enough pawns out to defend the rest of this group. And yeah, I mean, back at Wraxell's base, he doesn't have a con out yet. He hasn't made a new one. So this is it for him right now. So he really needs to like keep up that damage. And yeah, I mean, he even has that group of pawns to defend on this right-hand side. And yeah, I think with all these wrecks on the ground and so few cons out, I think a lot of this might actually come down to, you know, resurrecting the army. Okay, I say that. There is a pawn coming in here. One of the res bots is in trouble, going to get picked off. And that's certainly a big deal. He wants to keep those alive, wants to resurrect these wrecks, or these wrecks here. But yeah, not quite. Pawn gets picked off. But yeah, there's still like a group of units coming in here. I'm really curious to see what Wraxell does to get out of this. Meanwhile, there is a con that's being threatened at Wraxell's base. He finally built one, only, you know, for it to only get picked off there. And, you know, this is going to be shoot away / probably picked off. But, you know, these players are trading some pretty heavy blows. Losing those cons are certainly a big deal. But yeah, taking a look at this, you know, Autopilot's rebuilt the, you know, the mexes near his base. You know, has those res bots out, has 2 of them out, you know, resurrecting units. And so I think Autopilot should have the army advantage and continue to, as long as he keeps these res bots alive. Because Wraxell, you know, sitting here just trying to produce units, you know, now has a res bot out, but, you know, there aren't really that many wrecks on his side. You know, it's like aggression's good, but at the same time, you know, if you're not able to continue on the aggression and they're able to resurrect some of those, you know, some of those bots, then, you know, you're going to be in a weird position like this where they just have more. And don't get me wrong, like, you know, maybe there's a certain point when you deal some damage and then you realize, like, okay, if I continue this up and we keep trading blows in his base, you know, is that going to leave too many wrecks behind for them to have later? Because certainly this is helping Autopilot out a lot at the moment. Yeah, Resurrector comes out, gets to that Constructor, so he's finally rebuilding that mech. Second Constructor comes out, and Wraxell does have, like, you know, this forward pressure, Autopilot being a bit more defensive. I think he's going to be sending these 3 pawns on the right up towards Wraxell's base, but he already has some units to defend. Some of these units are hurt, so that does play into how this goes. And certainly, I think Autopilot doing a nice job just kind of backing up there. Backing up allows you to trade more efficiently. So you can get some extra damage in. But yeah, backing up and then maybe going forward later on, depending on what Wraxell does. But I think, Autopilot's still in a pretty good position here. It has 3 cons out now. Actually, one of them assisting the lab with the commander. One of them going out to grab more, or I should say 2 of them going out to grab more mexes. And, with all those resurrected units, I think he's sitting pretty good. His army value's like pretty good, pretty high in comparison. Wraxell here, I'm not sure what you do at this point, because with those wrecks sitting at the base, Autopilot's automatically going to have more units. And if you're not able to keep that down, whilst also being behind on constructors, grabbing mexes, like, it's going to be kind of a rough time. Because your opponent's ahead on army value and ahead on economy. So we'll have to wait and see if Wraxell's able to do some damage. It's like there is no LLT here. There is, just pawns. So, Wraxell could potentially, get through here a little bit and maybe do some more damage to the back. But once again, with these resbots out, they can maybe pick up some of these mexes, assuming that they leave a big enough wreck. And look at this. On the right-hand side, we have a lot of pawns from Autopilot coming in here. And this is certainly going to be a tough defense, but there is an LT. Pawns coming in for the defense. And it looks like, okay, yeah, Autopilot, decides to back out of there, maybe realizing that, sure, maybe I can take this out, but I'll be left with, like, a pawn or 2. And at that point, it's just a lot of wrecks for them to have and possibly get back in the game in the same way that Autopilot's gotten back into the game. So I think this is a smart move. Autopilot, might be feeling it out, might be realizing that, like, hey, I'm ahead on units because of those wrecks. And as long as, Wraxell isn't, like, expanding too quickly, Autopilot should be in a good position with all the cons that he has out as well. So, I think this game is still in Autopilot's favor. Wraxell is slightly ahead on metal income, but just the army value difference, I think, here is, I guess from here it just kind of stabilizes with Autopilot being slightly ahead, because I'm not sure if Autopilot has enough out to be able to, like, end the game right now, basically. But we'll just see how this goes. Wraxell being a little AFK with his units, but it's kind of fine because the attacking pawns, didn't really have a great angle there. Bit of a skirmish in the middle. There is a tick in the back of Autopilot's base here, taking out a mech, taking out a couple of solar or wind turbines, I should say. But yeah, with the nice spread of wind turbines, like, they are kind of close together, but they're not, like, close enough where they're all going to chain. And I think that certainly helps out that situation. But also, it is just a tick, so, like, not the end of the world, since it doesn't have the highest damage. Looks like some pawns were taken out here near Wraxell's base on the right. Some more pawns in the center. Trying to find some good trades, but, also, the trades are going to leave a wreck, so you got to think about that too. Wraxell actually GG'ing. Wraxell taps out. I think, with all the aggression with the pawns, it makes sense to, but it did feel a little premature, given that this is a tournament. So yeah, that brings our score up to 1-1. So we will have a third game here in a moment. Let me just load that up for you guys. But yeah, that was a little surprising. A little surprising it was so early. Because yeah, all those wrecks are a big deal. I mean, Autopilot, you know, he was 2 seconds away from you know, trading at that top right position, and potentially donating a bunch of wrecks for Wraxell to have. So yeah, I think that alone just kind of helps seal the game a little bit sooner. So let me just check OBS real quick. Okay, cool. Sometimes I hit the wrong button and stop recording or something, so I just want to make sure that I'm not doing something stupid. But anyways, let's get into our third game here.
Game started.
All right, so we've got Autopilot once again at the bottom. Spawn as our blue Armada player. This is the center left-hand side position. And then we have Wraxell spawned at the top right-hand center position, I guess, as our red Armada player. And this is Tundra. So there's really what was that, 4 starting positions potentially. There's this one in the mountains, which kind of sucks because if you put a radar on your base, it can't see over the mountains, so it just has tons of blind spots. There's this one to the center left that has a mountain here and also has the rest of these mountains here. So expanding to the left can be difficult if you take that one. If you take the one that Wraxell took, and also Autopilot, since it's rotationally symmetric, this one has the mountain, but it's also open here. So a radar can see this right-hand side. And then same thing with the bottom position here. A radar can see over this cliff here. So, either of these locations is fine, in my opinion. With this one in the center, you have to sort of worry about this, this cliff here. But as long as you keep that in check and have some units stationed there to see what's coming towards you, you should be just fine. But yeah, looking at what these players are doing, we got Wraxell with 1 solar, Khan out first. Wind on this map is pretty moderate, 4 to 14. So having a solar is oftentimes a good idea. But yeah, of course you want to tune it to how much, sorry, my cat just running around apparently. You just want to tune it to what the wind is actually at the moment. But yeah, both players with a solar here. Autopilot sitting with a Resbot out first, Khan second. And, looking back over here at Wraxell, we do not see a Resbot. So, just sending out some units immediately, sending out a tick, trying to see what Autopilot's up to. Of course, if these, they can pressure Khans, they can pressure Mexes. But yeah, it's going to be up to Autopilot to, spread out, be in good positions here to defend, whatever he has out, like the Resbots and the Khan. No radar out here for Autopilot quite yet, just relying on ticks. It is kind of something that Armada can kind of get away with, simply because ticks are, they're the fastest thing that your opponent can throw at you. So, especially early on, the only thing that can really get to you right now are scouts, such as ticks. So I think just the tick defense is just fine. Radar is now finished though. And this is a nice forward radar to see stuff on the low ground as well as, stuff coming through the center. Meanwhile, on Wraxell's side of the map, we do have a Khan that could potentially be threatened, but there are some ticks to defend. He does have a radar in this position here, so his blind spot right now is on the left. So hopefully, he might want to get some units over there. There are some ticks over there stationed that could potentially go in, but, I think Autopilot, just kind of respecting his opponent, kind of saying oh, you probably, will be able to defend this. It's just 2 ticks. So, not going crazy with it, right? Just kind of being careful, careful to just not straight up lose those units. And also just, if you keep those units alive, you're generating threat, it's something that you can use later. It's something for scouting. It's something, it kind of has all these things that it can do, and potentially attack even at some point. Oh, I shouldn't talk about that right now. We got a pawn inside of Autopilot's base doing some damage, taking out quite a few wins here. Wow. Okay, so those changed a little bit. Certainly, that's not a good position for Autopilot here. So on the other side of the map, he is going to be looking to try to do some damage. A tick just gets picked off in this location here. The other 2 ticks, one going up to the hill, the other one maybe going to the back of the base. No, decides to sit there. Okay, now going in, realizing there's not much there, but Wraxell, I think that gave Wraxell too much time to defend this. He got his units in a position, and I mean, I guess looking at the big picture here, we do still have 2 cons out for Autopilot. So, despite losing the energy there, like as long as he can rebuild it in enough time, he should be just fine. And Autopilot, in fact, a little bit ahead on metal income. So yeah, I mean, looking at Wraxell's base, we got 12 wind turbines there, and we have 7 for Autopilot, and that's certainly hurting Autopilot a little bit at the moment, but not a significant enough amounts of damage to turn the tides of battle in a gigantic way or anything like that. Certainly these cons being out on the map, expanding a little faster, it's helping out a lot. Yeah, Mex gets picked off. That's going to even it up. In fact, another Mex gets picked off, so Autopilot is certainly taking some damage. Maybe has a few too many pawns on this right-hand side. Resbot being threat now going to be taken out. That's a big deal too. Looks like the con on that side did retreat a little bit, but is going to be threatened by this tick. And yeah, Wraxell trying to get in here once again with some pawns, but it makes me wonder: is this going to be too many Rex again? Is this going to be just like the last game where you deal damage, but then it's like, well, they have a bunch of Rex, so it doesn't it's something that they can maybe pick up again. All these mexes are leaving Rex behind that can be resurrected here. But yeah, Wraxell in a fairly good position this time, hasn't taken a bunch of damage in return. So, well, I say that a couple pawns coming in here into the back, can maybe find an angle. Autopilot decides to back out, trying not to just like leave those Rex behind. And I think seems to be a very distinct thing between these 2 players. It's just like, how committed are they to an attack? And Autopilot, seems to find angles where he can get out of that attack and not leave those Rex behind, assuming that the situation becomes too dicey for him to stay there. 1 pawn coming up here, it might be able to get this con. Probably not, actually, because this one's so close behind. But yeah, Autopilot doing a pretty good job keeping his cons alive, and I think he's maybe recognized that is the name of the game, like, positioning those units to defend all those cons, while trying to have, like, maybe not just having all the attack on their side, because you want enough units to defend, but then also maybe sneak some in at some point where they might not be paying attention or expecting it. But yeah, another pawn actually gets in here in Autopilot's base, takes out some more wind turbines. Again, Autopilot took some damage there, but at the same time, his energy is not actually doing too bad. So, I think he's going to be okay for that for now. And yeah, it makes me wonder, like, is taking out those wind turbines, the cost of the wind turbines versus the cost of the pawn. And obviously the wind turbines, enough wind turbines were picked off where it's kind of even. Sorry, enough wind turbines were picked off there, where it definitely outweighs the cost of the pawn. But with the pawn leaving a wreck, it's like that's minus the cost of the pawn for you, and then plus the cost of a pawn for your enemies. So, maybe it is, or maybe it isn't enough damage to actually counteract something like that. But yeah, aggression's still mostly on Autopilot's side, but Autopilot now coming out with these bigger groups of units. And looking at this, it's like maybe Wraxell's being a little too aggressive here. He's able to take out this position here, but at the same time, like, what does he have at home? We only see this group of 4 pawns and 2 ticks, and he's got to deal with this massive 12 pawn group. There are LTs in the position, but that's not going to be enough for 12 pawns, right? There's also this group on the left-hand side looking to come in here, and there's certainly not going to be enough units to be able to pay attention to both sides. So he's certainly going to lose this con, right? At the very least, he's going to lose that con. Meanwhile, there is a battle at the bottom left, and Wraxell's trying to come in here and do some damage, but Autopilot being, his defense is too strong. Wraxell's, group here just kind of running forward and getting picked off. I mean, sure, he gets some damage done, but I think maybe the APM is no, actually both players, you know, still 50 some APM, which is pretty high for Bar. But yeah, I guess all the pawns get cleaned up there. The pawns on the other side, it looks like most of them were cleaned up as well. So yeah, a bunch of wrecks on both sides at this point. Pretty big damage on both sides. But yeah, looking at the big picture, looks like we got 4 cons now for Autopilot. 2 of them back at base, now building a construction turret as his metal is increasing still because he has, you know, a con out on the right-hand side here. Still has a bunch of mexes, you know, and his metal's, you know, a little bit higher. You know, and Wraxell sitting on, you know, is sitting on his own construction turret, has a couple cons, you know, taking care of base stuff. In fact, I feel like one of these could probably go out and start expanding, you know, because you need to keep growing, and you do have enough energy. So I think 2 is maybe a bit too much here. But yeah, going back to the whole APM thing, you might be thinking, you know, in Bar, you know, why are players' APM so low? You know, why is it only 50? Why isn't it like a StarCraft APM of like 200, 300 plus, you know, maybe 400, 500, you know, depending on how good the players are. And I'm pretty sure it's calculated quite differently. Like in StarCraft, you can just like keep selecting like this, and all of a sudden you get like a whole bunch of APM. In Bar, that does not happen. So the APM just being calculated a little bit differently, you know, changes that entirely. So you can't think of it like, you know, it's the same thing or anything like that. Oh, but look at this. Wraxell loses another con on the left-hand side here. These pawns coming in. In fact, they're even going to get out. I mean, just come in there, free damage, get out. I mean, in a constructor beyond the 110 metal that, you know, Wraxell has lost there, you know, it's time in building another con. It's, you know, the expansion time is also slowed down because you have to move the con over to the expansions to take them again. You know, little mistakes like that are actually a big mistake. And certainly at this level of play when this level of play and on this kind of map where, you know, aggression is kind of the ticket here, you know, which is all the mountains and stuff being in the way and whatnot, you know, having it being pretty open, but then again, your opponent's not really that far away, makes it really easy for the aggression to, you know, find damage. Yeah, pretty big group here from Autopilot coming in. There's a radar going up, but I don't think okay, I guess he does see it. And yeah, unfortunately, this con is probably going to get picked off as well. This is certainly more important than losing a couple of pawns. But as it so happens, Autopilot has plenty here to trade. And yeah, even just like trading a little bit, backing out, making sure that his engagements are really good. And that just feels really bad for Wraxell. And I think the backing out part of it, even though you're the aggressor, is a really key thing here. Also on this, you know, right-hand side here, doing some damage as well. Going to lose, Wraxell going to lose another con and a resbot. And yeah, this is just becoming just too many units to deal with, I think. I think Wraxell is definitely in some trouble in this game. A couple of resbots and cons out here as well. But I think for now, he's just going to be losing that resbot. I say that, but this con's being threatened. Meanwhile, on the right-hand side, pawns are moving forward, crushing it, taking out these positions. There's certainly enough to take out the LLT. And it looks like, yeah, the resbots on the left are taking out as well. So yeah, all those units, those 2 cons, those 2 resbots, you know, that's a huge amount of damage, especially if you add up or, you know, include the damage on the right here. You know, Autopilot still sitting very, you know, very strong position here with his cons on the, you know, he has a con on the left, con on the right, even has a con in the center expanding. So, you know, he's starting to take these bigger mexes. Wraxell, GG's, as the, you know, Autopilot here in a pretty dominating position.
Battle
ended. And yeah, I mean, I'm not, I guess I should have paid more attention exactly to, or maybe my memory's failing me and I just don't remember what happened. But yeah, Autopilot, you know, able to keep those cons alive. Wraxell just kept losing them, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, I mean, losing all those cons, like especially the free ones, is definitely a very big deal. You know, I just, it goes back to like I'm remembering the there's a con that was kind of sticking out, and the defending units were like just a little bit too far back. So Autopilot's pawns just step forward, pick off the con, and then just walked back, not even engaging the army. And just like free wins like that, like that con is such a big deal. Like situations like that, and I think Autopilot certainly played it really, really, really well. But anyways, that's it for this cast. Autopilot moves forward, to the semifinals of the losers bracket, and Wraxell is out of the tournament. But yeah, stay tuned for more Alpha Cup casting as I run through this tournament, hopefully giving some good analysis as the casts go on. Hopefully you guys learned something. And yeah, this is me signing out. I hope, this is me signing out, and I hope you tune into some of the future casts. Thanks for watching.